This is my video submission for assignment 3 of the Cloud Foundations course at RMIT University. For identification purposes, my name is Tông Thắc Hữu Long with the student ID of 3958304. The questions that I will answer in this video is question 1. So what kinds of AWS servers or instances can I create using EC2? The second question is how I would configure CloudFront with an S3 bucket. And the third question is what has the guest speaker contributed to my learning of cloud computing. All right, to answer question 1, which is to describe what kind of servers can be created using EC2. EC2 allows you to create a range of server types optimized for different use cases. These instances are grouped into families based on the type of resource that they optimize. So general purpose instances, the T and M families, are commonly used for hosting web servers with low to medium traffic, development and staging environments, and also backend services with small to medium databases with medium moderate workloads. We also have compute optimized instance. The C family are suited for compute-bound workloads such as high-performance web servers handling large volumes of concurrent requests, batch processing, so video encoding or image transformation, gaming servers, and scientific modeling that requires high CPU throughput, and also machine learning inference workloads. We have accelerated computing instances. The P, INF, TRN, and F family are used for specialized workloads that need hardware acceleration, so training deep learning models using frameworks like TensorFlow or PyTorch, high-performance computing tasks including scientific simulations, graphics rendering, and video transcoding, custom hardware acceleration using FPGAs for specialized applications. We have the newly launched HPC optimized instances using the HPC family. It is used for compute-intensive high-performance computing workloads such as computational fluid dynamics or CFD, weather forecasting, and molecular dynamics. And we have memory optimized instances using the R and X families. These are ideal for memory intensive applications like in-memory databases like Redis, large-scale caching, real-time big data analytics requiring rapid data access like Apache Spark and Hadoop, and also high-performance relational databases like RDS and MySQL. We have storage optimized instances. The I, D, and H families are designed for workloads that require high sequential read and write access to large datasets, such as NoSQL databases, so MongoDB, DynamoDB, Cassandra, that require high IOPS, distributed file systems, HDFS, data warehousing, handling large-scale data storage and querying, and also log processing systems. Each instance type is available in various sizes to match specific performance and cost requirements. It is important to note that selecting the appropriate instance depends on the workload's demand for compute power, memory, storage, and networking capabilities. Then that is my answer for question 1. Okay, for question 2, explain how I would set up CloudFront on an S3 bucket. So the way that I would go about this task is to set up a private S3 bucket and then configure CloudFront with Origin Access Control or OAC to ensure that we restrict public access to the S3 bucket directly, as we may not want to expose our S3 bucket name for security reasons, and only allow the contents of the S3 to be accessed by the CloudFront distribution. So this way, public users can only access the contents of our S3 bucket via the CloudFront endpoint. So first, I would start by creating an S3 bucket to store the static content, such as media files like images. Then I would keep the block all public access option enabled to prevent the direct access from the internet. And then I would upload all the necessary assets. Now I'll move on to configuring the CloudFront distribution. First, I will have to select the newly configured S3 bucket as the origin domain. And then for the origin access section, I would select the recommended settings of origin access control settings. This is where I can configure the OAC. I will create a new control setting with the default signing behavior of sign request. And for caching behavior, I will usually leave it on AWS defaults unless the use case requires me to set it up differently, like changing the caching policy to be refreshed more times. During creation, we will also have the option to configure it with a web ACL in AWS WAF and to include a custom domain name. After creating the distribution, the AWS Management Console will provide a newly created bucket policy to only allow our CloudFront distribution to get objects from our S3 bucket. Once deployed, I would access the CloudFront domain to verify the content is served correctly. I then attempt to direct Uh, I have direct access to the S3 object URL to confirm that it's blocked, validating the private access configuration that we want. I would also enable CloudFront logging and then CloudWatch to monitor the request patterns and latency. Okay, for question 3, can I describe how the guest speakers have contributed to my learning about cloud computing? So this semester, I had the pleasure of joining the fireside chat session with Mrs. Steve Fu, currently the Director of Platform Engineering at Starbucks and previously with Microsoft and Disney. I think it was fascinating to hear him talk about his long journey in tech, especially starting from a time where before cloud computing even existed, when he shared about how he had to manually scale from 4 to 10 servers during high traffic situations at a startup. It really helped me understand how much more time consuming and more stressful infrastructure management used to be. It made me appreciate how much easier things are now with cloud services, where so much can be done automatically and scaling is no longer such a painful and manual process. One part of his talk that really stood out to me was how easily cloud infrastructure can be taken down and rebuilt. I hadn't really thought about it like that before, but it makes a lot of sense. So if a certain setup isn't working, you can just try something new without starting completely from scratch and wasting a lot of money. So that flexibility means that companies and businesses can experiment and test different configurations and make changes quickly based on what's best for performance and cost. It gave me a new perspective on how the cloud isn't just about speed or storage, it's about adaptability and learning through iteration. It also goes back to how this wouldn't be possible 10 or 20 years ago without cloud computing. These processes would take a lot more time than today, where it would be just a couple of minutes. And when he spoke about his time at Disney, he mentioned a project that handled API management for the Magic Band system, which had to deal with around half a billion transactions every day. It really drove home how critical some systems are, especially when they're directly tied to the customer experience. If that system had gone down, the business impact that would cause would have been huge. So people stuck at parks wouldn't be able to go into their hotel rooms. It reminded me that when you're working with large scale systems, reliability is something that you have to design for from the start. Towards the end, Mr. Steve advised for people like me who are interested in cloud or the DevOps roles, he said not to forget the fundamentals. So things like Linux networking basics and understanding like how subnet mask or CIDR blocks work. That really clicked with me because sometimes it's just tempting to learn the newest tool or platform, but hearing that from someone who's had such a long and successful career reminded me that the basics are what everything else is built on. So knowing these well would give me more confidence and flexibility no matter what technology that I'm working with. Overall, hearing from someone with that level of experience helped me connect a lot of the dots between what I learned in class and how it's actually used in real jobs. It made the idea of working in cloud computing feel more grounded and achievable and gave me a clearer idea of what mindset and skills that I should be building for the future.